Welcome back to Cricket Aviation. My name is Jim Payne, and in this video we're going to go over fabricating a battery mount for the CriCri. Now, full disclaimer, this is not covered in the plans or the manual, and everything that I've done here has been garage engineering at best. So if you plan on making a battery mount similar to the one that I've created here, just make sure you take full responsibility for its engineering and airworthiness. So the reason I created a battery mount and actually installed a battery in this airplane is because my engines are very, very low weight, and as a result I needed some ballast in the nose of the airplane. I also don't have all of the interconnecting things that were required to try and balance the two-stroke engines. That's all been removed off of my airplane, so again that reduced the weight in the nose of the airplane also. So my goal was try and get weight in the front of the airplane, but also I don't have any generators on my engines themselves, so I don't have a way of generating electricity and charging and running and powering everything in the airplane that's powered by electronics. So I decided to actually get a battery that I could install in the front. It would act as ballast, and it would also power all of my electronics in the airplane for multiple flights. So we're going to go over fabricating a battery box. We're also going to do the final installation of the nose cone, which will consist of installing the pitot tube, which acts as the mounting point for the nose cone. And we're also going to go over adding some additional support to frame one to support the edges of the nose cone when it's installed on the front of the airplane. So as always, please like the video, and if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. Thanks. So now that I have the instrument panel installed and I've figured out pretty much where most of the components are going to go, I now need to get a battery installed for this setup I'm doing here. Now what I'm trying to do is a full-size, well not a full-size, but an actual battery instead of using some of the RC batteries, and then use some step-down transformers to convert from 12 volts down to 6 or 7 volts that's required for the receiver side, or the ECU, which is equivalent to what you'd have connected to your receiver battery inside of your airplane or radio control stuff that would normally power these turbines that I have on here. And then the other thing I need is power for the starter and the fuel pumps for the turbines, which are supposed to be a 3S battery, which is right around 10 volts. I'm still questioning whether or not I can use 12 volts for that, possibly. I'm not so sure that that's too far off, but I know a 3S battery fully charged is supposed to be like 12.4 volts, but now this fully charged is like 14.3 volts. So there's a lot of variations here that I don't really know exactly what's going to work out here and what isn't, because I have very little documentation on what I can and cannot do. But what I need to do is I want to mount this battery on the nose of the airplane. Now I specifically got this Odyssey battery and didn't go with a lithium or a lipo or something like that, because I needed extra weight on the front of this airplane. These turbines are so light, plus I don't have any of the additional vibration dampening stuff that's supposed to be on the front of this for the piston engine. So I needed to get weight on the front of this. I didn't want to just put plates of metal on the front. I thought, well, why don't I just get a decent battery? This does weigh 11 pounds, so this adds an additional 5.5 pounds equivalent to each one of my engines, which are super light. I'm guessing this isn't even going to be enough weight. And the reason I went with this battery here was because it was the biggest battery that I could fit that would still allow the nose cone to fit over with enough space around it. This seemed to be the best solution. And I've used this in a small boat to use as a starter battery, and it works great. In fact, I've had that in a boat for over 10 years, and it's now just starting to not fully charge where I need to replace it. And this is an AGM battery. It is made by Odyssey. It's an extreme battery. It is designed to be mounted in not necessarily a completely horizontal or vertical position like this. You can tip it sideways. It is supposed to be allowed to be inverted. And it's supposed to be used in, extreme off-road cases. So I think for the aircraft here, it should work fine. Again, I'm looking at pulling, let's say, 4 G's positive, 2 G's negative for very short periods of time. I think this battery is going to be okay. But again, this is kind of an experiment here. But for now, since I'm not going to be doing any aerobatics in the beginning anyway, at least any negative G stuff, so I'm going to just use this for now and then kind of see how it goes. But I need to make a mount for this on the front. And what I'm thinking of doing is similar to these airfoil clamps here. And I stuck one on here. I'll pull it back off. But I think what I'm going to do is make 2 clamps that go around the tube here. One that goes here and one that goes here. And then I'm going to add a mount to the bottom here that's going to bolt onto this little vertical piece for this, so I can get at least a 3-point connection here. And my goal is to just have the clamps going through here, a bracket down here, and then I'm going to mount a plate on the front of that, probably an aluminum plate. And then I'm going to bend basically what is a bracket that encloses this that will bolt onto the front of that and support the battery. That's my goal. That's what I'm trying to figure out. So I did make this block here. This is kind of a simulation of the battery size itself, and what I'm going to do is use this to try and form the sheet metal part that I'm going to make to support the battery. I have bending brakes here, but none of them will bend, a 1/16 inch thick or 0.063 material or thicker. So I'm going to have to just use a block and screw it on here and then try and bend it and form it with a hammer, assuming that I'm going to have to anneal it. So we'll see how that comes out. I'm not thrilled about having to do it that way. I was sure hoping to be able to use a bending brake, but again, like I said, my bending brakes won't even allow that material to fit in there and bend a correct radius without it snapping. So yeah, let me see if I can get a little bit further here. Let me see if I can make these clamps that are going to go around the tube here for each side, and I'll go ahead and cut out on the CNC machine the part that I'm going to form on here, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get a little bit further here. So here's the clamps that I created. I just cut these out by hand and shaped the hole here, drilled them out on the mill. I'm going to use a number 10 bolt, but these are going to clamp right here. I have to clear the corner weld down here for this corner support, but I'm hoping to put that about right here, and I'm going to put another one right here. And I'm going to use some number 10 bolts, and then with those on here, I'm going to now put an aluminum plate that mounts to those 2 brackets, and it'll have countersunk screws in it that then go all the way through these brackets that then clamp. And I didn't thread these, like we did these here, because I didn't want to have aluminum threads on this. I want this to bolt all the way through and have a washer and a lock nut on the back. I think this needs quite a bit more support, obviously, than these little airfoil shapes do, because the amount of weight on here. So by putting a through bolt all the way through and a nut and a lock washer in the end, I don't have to worry about the threads, and I don't have to worry about the fact that there's not any kind of a locking mechanism in there. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is try and figure out exactly what size aluminum plate I need to put on here. I'm going to make that a little bit thicker than what I'm using for the actual bending that I'm doing on this. In fact, I might do 80 thousandths for this plate that goes on here. I'm also thinking if I have to add any weight to the front of this, what I might do is on top of that plate, if I have to add additional weight, I'm going to cut additional square steel plates to mount behind the battery, using again these as support on these tubes to just get the weight right here on the front. I think that's going to be the easiest way to do it, and I can just build up thicknesses of steel plate and just use longer screws on these where the battery's mounted, and I think that's going to be the best way to get weight on the front here anyway. I'm hoping I don't have to do too much of that. I'm hoping I don't have to do any at all, but we'll see. Okay, so yeah, so let me figure out exactly where these are going to fit clamped on, and then I'm going to measure the size of the plate, make sure that it still fits with the battery here, but the battery is smaller than where those brackets are going to be mounted anyway, or at least part of them. So anyway, I'll show you what it looks like when I get a little bit further here. Okay, I got a little bit further on this battery mount that I'm making. So I've got the clamps on the back here, and I cut a piece of 80 thousandths material that's basically 3/4 of an inch bigger than the battery, so that when I create the case that's going to hold the battery onto this, there'll be a flange that sticks out here on the sides and the bottom that will bolt to this plate. So what I have to do next, though, is I have a third support that I want to put in here because this isn't enough. This would rotate. And so what I want to do down here is actually run from the bottom of the plate here a support that goes to this engine mount here. And I'm just going to drill a number 10 hole through here and bolt an attachment here that then bolts to this front plate. That'll be the third point that I need to actually provide support to this, so it doesn't want to rotate. Obviously it doesn't really want to rotate the way it is, but I need a third support there just in case. So what I'm going to do is work on that support. Once that support is done, I'm going to cut out on the CNC machine the bracket mount that I'm going to bend, that's going to wrap and hold the battery and support the battery against this plate here. Now none of this is in the plans. Obviously this is all garage engineering. This is not so don't do this unless you feel comfortable with what you're doing as far as a design and plans and so forth. I'm doing this again just to try and support this battery for now, anyway, so if you need to put a battery on the front of your airplane, go ahead and do whatever you want to do, but don't necessarily follow this because there's no engineering involved with this that I'm doing here. This is the I think it looks good enough. It looks strong enough to me setup here. So so anyway, let me get the bottom mount in, and then again I'll cut this part out on the CNC machine that we're gonna actually support the battery with. So I was able to make some progress on the center bracket that's going to get installed on the bottom of here. So this is going to slip over that existing support there for the engine mount. So this is going to slip over like this and fit basically right up there, similar to that. And then I'll just put some countersunk screws with some nuts on the back of that, and then I'll drill one probably number 10 bolt through that support there and through that bracket, and just bolt that bracket, and that'll be plenty of support for this. So yeah, I'll do a little bit more work on this, clean up and drill some holes in it, and that should be good. So I think what I'm going to do next after that is go ahead and cut out the sheet metal that I need to bend to wrap around and support that that battery on the floor there. So let me go work on that, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get a little bit further here. So this is the piece of sheet metal that I cut out on the CNC machine that I'm going to attempt to bend around this shape here. So what I basically have is, this is the bottom, these are the two sides. I'm going to bend these sides up. This lip here, which will be in the front, I'm going to bend that one up, and so those three sides should hold the bottom of the battery. And then these other tabs, this one here, 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 and here, I'm going to bend all of those out. Because the three on the back side will be the flange that I use to bolt to that plate that I had created on the front of the engine mount here. And then this one and this one I'm also going to bend out, because that's what I'm going to use to attach on the top a bracket that supports the top of the battery, to hold it down in there. And then I'm also going to use that to attach whatever I'm going to use on the front here to attach the pitot tube. That's also going to be the mount for the nose cone. So we got a lot of bending to do here. I do not know how this is going to go. I tried to create as small a radius as I could on this block because I don't want huge radiuses here. But I'm not confident that this isn't going to crack. I think what I am going to do is try and anneal these few bend lines here. I'm going to see how the first two go, and I'll kind of go from there. But my guess is this is going to be attempt one of more than one. So anyway, let me see what I can do about starting to bend this. I did put holes in here so I can screw it down onto this block exactly where I want to. And I may put another block on top of this to keep the metal on this side from trying to bow out as I bend it down around it. But anyway, I'm gonna have to play with this and see how it goes. So I've gotten quite a ways on this bracket that I'm creating to hold the battery on the front of the airplane here. This is working out really, really well. I couldn't be more pleased with how this is actually bending. So what I've been doing is obviously I pre-drilled these holes in it so that I could mount this to the wooden block that I have there on the floor. And I've been just going back and forth and just basically screwing that block where I wanted to make a bend. And of course I did radius the edges on that, just so you know. But I bent up the sides, I bent this lip in the front and bent that lip down I'm now bending this one side here, and what I've been doing is when you pound it around the block, it bends about this far, so it's about, what, 80-90% bent. And then I take it off of there, and I do heat this a second time. So I have been annealing these joints. I've been just heating them up, wait until the Sharpie just starts to disappear, and then quenching it in water. I do that twice, though, so once I get to this point, I'm going to do that one more time because I get a little bit concerned that bending at 90 degrees, builds up too much stress in that joint, that I'm afraid it's going to crack if I keep bending it without heating it and kind of helping relieve some of the stress in the joint there. But then I just pound the rest of it by hand. I just set it down and just tap the top of it until it bends back, bends over. I got to pound this pretty hard. But the parts of this are turning out nice and straight. It's bending very easily, fairly easily. I got to pound it pretty hard with a hammer, but I think this is going to be plenty strong, and like I said, this is going really well. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up this side, and then go ahead and bend this other side here, and we'll see if it's going to fit. Well, here's the final after bending. It actually turned out pretty good. I did end up with one crack. Let's see, it's down there on that corner there on the right. Now what I'm going to end up doing is 45ing those corners anyway, and so I'm just going to work it inside the radius there up a little bit farther before I 45 it, so I can get that crack completely clear. But that's the only crack I had. Everything else worked good. But yeah, if I set this down here, you can see, let's see, where's the battery? Yeah, so the battery is going to fit down in there like so. And the plate that I was mounting here on the front of the engine mount is going to be right behind here, so I'll clean this up. I'll bolt through these two sides and through the bottom to that plate. And then I've got this lip here that holds it in on the bottom, and then I'm going to put a bracket across the front here that wraps around and has a lip that attaches, that doesn't attach to the top, but basically comes around the top here to prevent the battery from falling out the other direction. And then on the plate that's mounted here to the front of the engine mount, I'm just going to put an angle right across here that'll bolt in to, again, hold it on this side also. So it'll be held across the front here, attached to these supports here on the side, and it'll be held up in place here by the bracket that's attached to the actual engine mount support. So I got some trimming and some cleanup to do on this, but otherwise, I mean, the battery fits well, so I'm quite happy with that. And I think this is going to work good. And then this bracket here in the front here, I'm going to have some kind of an attachment here to connect my pitot tube that's going to stick out here, that's also going to act as the bolt support for the nose cone. So I'm going to try and get that done next. But first I'm going to see if I can get this aluminum bracket here mounted to the plate, and then we'll go from there, and then I'll get this all cleaned up. I got several more steps done here. So I have this now mounted, grab this, onto the plate. As you can see, I just used some number 10 bolts that I had, and I was able to get the center bracket that's on the back here attached to the through this front bracket too. So so this now can be just bolted up against here and hold the battery in, which is perfect. So what I'm going to do now, let me see if I can get this battery out of here. That thing is heavy. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one more bracket. So what I'm going to do is make, let me get down here on the floor. So what I'm going to do is make a plate that goes across the front here that is going to go, so it's going to attach with 4 bolts here that'll cover the front, or at least part of it. And then it's going to bend around the top of the battery, go back here, and then have a flange that comes up that I can put 1 or 2 bolts on the back side of here, just to secure the battery on the top, and then the front here. Obviously it's not going to fall out because of that lip on the bottom, but I was trying to figure out how to secure it so that it doesn't come out this direction, vertical. But I think the best thing is going to be to just do a plate that covers the front here, most of it. Like I said, I'll bend it over the top of the battery, we'll bend it across, and then we'll have a lip, and that'll be able to come off. Then the battery can come out if we need to to take it out, but for now, that's actually going to work perfect. Yeah, so it'll just come up here, come across the top of the battery, hold the top of the battery, and then there'll be 2 screws holding on this side. Then I should be done. Well, I just finished up the battery box. I was able to create a cover for the front here, bend it around the top here, and then create a lip on the front here that attaches and holds the battery down from the front and the top. So yeah, I got a little bit of cleanup to do on this, but otherwise it's complete. I had a really hard time bending this lip across the front. This is a little bit wider than any of the other bends that I've done, and for some reason I just had to pound the heck out of it. Even though I tried to anneal it twice, I just could not get this to soften up. But anyway, I got it bent, and I got this lip here bent too, so it turned out pretty good, considering I did this with a hammer. So yeah, but anyway, I think this is going to work great. It seems very, very strong, so I'm not really concerned about the battery itself being held on the front of the engine mounts here. So I think this is going to work out great. I've got ballast now. I've got a battery that will power all of my electronics in the airplane while I'm flying, and I can just then recharge this battery after each flight, because this has plenty of battery. I could probably do many flights just using this one battery with the very limited draw that I have on all the accessories and instruments that I have in the airplane. So again, I just bought this battery mainly to get the 11 pounds out of it, and obviously the power everything in the airplane too. But anyway, so what I'm going to do now is I've got to order some of the hardware that works with these brackets here, because I just bought hardware store stuff and it doesn't have the correct 100-degree countersink that I need to mount those to this plate on the inside of this case. So I'm going to go ahead and wait till that hardware comes in, then I'll mount this probably permanently. I still have to drill a hole through this support that I have down here in the bottom and get that hole in the bottom of the engine mount here, but I'll do that at the time that I do the final mounting and I have all the hardware, so I can make sure everything's going to align properly. I'll drill that probably last thing. But anyway, yeah, this looks like it's going to work great. I'll have access now to the battery terminals underneath the nose cone, and of course as soon as I get this mounted, I'm going to drill a hole and create some kind of mount in the front here for the nose cone itself. So I actually have to figure out how to attach this, which I'm using for my pitot tube, to the front here, and then I've got the small little nut that fits inside the nose cone hole that I can use to attach this to the front. So I'll figure out exactly how I'm going to do that once I get the battery on there, get the nose cone put back on there, and see what depth I actually have between the mount point on the backside of the nose cone and the battery here. And once I determine that distance and exactly where that lands up, centered on here, I'll figure out how to make a mount and see if I have to do a 90-degree off of this to connect the pitot line, which I'm assuming I'm going to have to. But anyway, we'll figure that out once I get this all mounted. So let me go order some hardware, and I'll be back a little bit later. So I got the aircraft hardware in for the countersunk screws that I'm using to attach that battery box to the front of the engine mount here. I thought it was interesting. You can really see the difference in the angle of the head. The right is a 100-degree aircraft countersunk, and the one on the left is just standard, hardware store hardware that I believe is 82 degrees. So you can see there's quite a bit of difference in why I couldn't actually mount that box using the screws on the left with a countersink that I needed for the screw on the right. So now I can at least get it completely installed now, because the countersink will actually fit all the way in the hole that I created. So I'm going to go ahead and get that mounted on the front of here, and once that's on, I'm going to go ahead and test the fit of the nose cone and then try and figure out what depth I need to install this fitting, for example, for my pitot tube that goes into the nose cone. So it looks like I've got plenty of room though, and everything should fit. So I'm going to keep working on that next and see if I can create a bracket that's going to go on the front of here and actually get the nose cone so it will stay permanently attached. So I am going to make one modification to this back plate here before I install this battery mount. One of the things I started thinking about is that originally I was going to route the wires around this plate and back into the airplane, but that doesn't make a lot of sense because I've got a lot of material here that I really don't need for support necessarily. And originally I was thinking about cutting this out, but I think what I'm going to do is leave it, but then I'm going to cut with my milling machine a slot in the back of here that's plenty big enough to get all of the wiring to these connectors and just run them right out the back of this panel. I might 45 the corners off this to, I could save a little bit of weight. But I think I'll leave the rest of this material around here for support. And like I said, just cut a slot that's plenty big enough to get all the wiring in. And then that wiring can just come right out the back of the battery, go to the center here, and end up going into these grommets that have to go up to the instrument panel. I did get a battery charger too. This is actually the cable here for it. It came with the clamp-on connectors to charge the battery, but then you could unscrew these, which are 6mm, which is actually the same size as these posts on here, which is really nice. So I can attach a permanent cable here to be able to charge this battery, because I'm going to have to charge this battery really every day after flights. Since there's no way of charging the battery from the engines itself, this will be just a discharging battery all the time as it's in use, and it's got plenty of power in it. I'll just have to charge it every night, overnight with a charger. So I'm going to connect this inside the airplane somewhere where I can connect a battery charger to this easily, so I don't have to get to the battery that's in the nose cone here, because I won't have access to it. I don't want to take this nose cone off every time I need to charge the battery, since it's going to be a regular thing I need to do. Now let me show you the battery charger I got, because this thing is really nice. It's not that one on the floor. That's another one I was using to not only charge this battery, but another one. But I got a smaller, hold on, let me grab it here. So on Amazon, I found this company. It's called NOCO, and they make several different battery chargers. This is just a 5-amp battery charger. I didn't feel like I needed anything extravagant, at least for the airplane, since I'm just charging this small battery. But it does have an AGM setting on it, so it does have a setting to be able to charge the AGM batteries at the correct voltage that they're supposed to be charged at. And anyway, it's up to 5 amps, which should be enough to charge this battery, which isn't a problem. It's got a very long cable that I can plug into this one that'll be connected to the battery all the time. So I can just have this with me if I go somewhere. I don't have to carry it in the airplane, but as long as I have it in a toolkit or toolbox or whatever that I'm taking with me, any place the airplane is trailered to, I can charge this as long as I have access to an outlet. So these look like they're very well made, so it'll be interesting to see how it works. But they make 10 amp, 20 amp, other different chargers, and they get bigger and bigger. They even have a 2 amp like trickle charger that you can actually install in your airplane, or in an ATV or something like that, that's just there all the time, that you can just plug it in and have it charge whenever you need to. Kind of kept as a trickle charger, and it actually has a mount that allows you to attach it inside the airplane. This one doesn't, but I think you can buy a strap mount. This is fairly heavy though, so I don't think I'd want to actually take it in the airplane with me, unless I felt I needed it, or was flying someplace and leaving the airplane overnight, which this airplane will never do. So anyway, I'm also trying to make sure that this cable will reach, close enough to the instrument panel, so I don't have to reach too far into the airplane to try and charge it. They do make longer cables of these, at least there's like aftermarket companies that do. This one's only 21 inches long. It's another reason why I'm thinking of having the battery connectors go out the back here, so I'm not wasting, extra 3-4 inches of cable trying to get just around the battery mount. So let me see if I can get the battery mount installed. I'll cut those slots in there, and then I also need to finish that connector down at the bottom, that support down at the bottom. I haven't drilled that final hole in there, but I want to get this plate bolted on to the tubes first, and then make sure I have the alignment correct on that. I'll mark and drill that hole in that bracket and in the engine mount, and we'll see if we can get that mounted and get the battery installed. So I was able to mount the battery onto the front of the engine mount here for the first time. You can see I have the clamps in. I'm still using temporary nuts on the back, but I did get all the hardware I needed to do all the final mounting here. And you can see I did cut out slots here on either side of the battery terminal, so that I can run wiring directly out the back and into the grommets that I have here on the top of frame 1. So yeah, this, everything fits great. This is super strong. I could pick the whole airplane up with this box that I've created on the front here. The other thing I did also was I did get the mount Down there finished for the lower part. Drilled that hole through the lower engine mount and put a bolt, number 10 bolt through there. So I think that's more than adequate. I did install the charging port here and just ran it through. I want to see how far this goes up and if it even reaches up to frame 2 or not. I may have to get a longer cord here than what I got with the charger, but I'm also going to hook the charger up and just top off this battery and see how the charger works too. So the other thing I did is I was able to create a mark right here in the center from the nose cone. And let me find the nose cone here. Hold on. All right, so I was able to actually stick a Sharpie inside the nose cone and kind of push it in there about the right distance so that when I installed the nose cone, it would just touch the front of the battery box here, so I could create a mark to know exactly where to create the mount to attach the nose cone. So that actually worked quite well. Had to do it a few times testing out the adjustment for the length to make sure that it would just fit, but I got a very perfect mark there, and it is exactly in the center across here. It's a little bit higher than center, probably top to bottom, but again, it's like 16th or 1/8 of an inch at the most. So what I'm going to do is try and figure out exactly what I'm going to do to create a mount on here for the nose cone. It's possible that I could just rivet something on the front of here. I could put the heads on the back side of this, and I don't think they'll even hit the battery because there's a lip around the top of the battery here that is slightly wider. And I think if I use solid rivets, that might be the way to go to hold that on. I don't know if I want to use pop rivets because there could be some force pulling out on that, and I don't want those pop rivets to work loose. So whatever bracket I put on here, I want to have it mounted fairly securely. I could use screws or bolts, but I'm not sure I want to deal with that because, again, the heads have to be on one side and you got the tail sticking out the other side. And again, I think rivets are going to work just fine. So I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. So I think I showed earlier what I have to attach to the front here. So this is what actually fits through where that Sharpie is in my nose cone. And so I need to mount this the right distance out so that when I bolt that nose cone on, it at least pulls tight to this. And that I get this positioned correctly. So this is what I got to figure out exactly how to mount on here. And then this is going to attach to the back of that. It's going to come up here, and then I'll run the pitot line into one of those grommet holes and up to the instrument panel, and that should work great. I don't think there's going to be any issues with this. And this is a really nice way to do it because I can just simply take the nut off the end of this inside that nose cone, and I can pull the nose cone completely off. And like I said, that's a little bit different than the plans because this will stay attached to the front of here, so I don't have to worry about, the pitot line hanging onto the nose cone when it's removed. So anyway, I'm not planning on having to remove this nose cone unless I actually need to do some major maintenance, because once the battery's installed here and I have all the wiring going to the instrument panel and I have the charging cable going up somewhere by the instrument panel, I shouldn't need to have access to this battery unless I need to change it out, because I can charge it while it's inside the nose cone. So that was the plan all along, is to limit the amount of access I actually needed up here to the front. So I think I've got a pretty good solution here. So let me see if I can figure out a mount to attach this to the front, the right distance I need, and I'll show you what it looks like when I come up with something here. Okay, so I did finish making a mount here for the nose cone and my pitot tube. So I just took some 32 thousandths material, and of course based on a measurement of sticking in something through the nose cone here to figure out exactly how far back the battery box was, I had about 2 1/4 inches to the front mounting flange here that I needed to create a bracket for. So I used 32 thousandths, just did 1 inch wide and 2 1/4 inch depth. And so what I'm hoping to do is just rivet this to the front of the battery box using 4 rivets, solid rivets, 2 on each side. And I did have to put a doubler down in here. You can see I added a 1/16 inch piece of scrap material that I had. And the reason that I did that is because at the base of the threads on this fitting was a recessed area similar to kind of how the tip is here. And so what would happen is that even though I had a tight hole that fit around the threads, as soon as I pushed this through the hole, the base of it ended up loose because it was just slipping inside of the recessed area at the base. So by making a thicker area down here, I could engage the threads before it came out of the hole, which kept it centered, and that seemed to be the best way to resolve that issue. Plus, it gave me some extra support here, which is probably needed with the nose cone kind of pulling on this bracket. It would tend to want to bend at the corners, and this will kind of prevent that from happening. So this is basically how this is going to be mounted in here. I got this fitting in here. I've got the attachment for the pitot line. I've got a lock washer on the end here, and then I've got a nut, and of course the back side of the fitting that's on the nose cone here will rest up against this this blue nut that's on here. And then what I can do is I can stack up washers behind that blue nut to make the blue nut, come out a little bit further if I need, if I need to add some shims basically underneath there to adjust the actual seating part of the nose cone. I do want to have the nose cone actually pressed up against this nut tight. I don't want to just have it just kind of a pressure, put the nut on here and wherever it stops, it stops. I really want to adjust it so that the seating of the outside of this nose cone against the fuselage is meeting exactly with the seating of it against this nut, so that I can just tighten everything up tight. I think that's going to be the best way to do that. So my goal now is to go ahead and take the nose cone off. Let me see if I can center this exactly where it needs to go on the front of the battery box. Go ahead and get the 4 holes drilled in there, and then I'll just put some CriCos in there for now and see how the nose cone fits, see if I need to put any shims underneath the nut there, and I'll just keep adjusting it until this pulls nice and tight up against the fuselage. So I can pull this off right now with one finger. And as you know from before, I did mark exactly where the center of this needed to go, so it's going to basically go like that. We'll rivet it on the front, and then we'll check the fit. So let me go ahead and drill some holes. Hopefully I can get this as close to the center as possible, and we'll test fit the nose cone. Well, I actually have it bolted on now, just with CriCos connecting the front of that bracket to the front of the battery mount. And it seemed like I was able to tighten it up, although it was getting kind of hard to tell. So I don't think I'm going to know if I have space between the fitting on the backside of here and the mount here where I need to put some shims or not, and until I actually take the nut off, put some shims back there, and test fit it to see if it's loose and doesn't go all the way on to the nose cone here. Now there's a couple other things I want to do here on front of frame 1. So you can see around the cover here that it doesn't pull out tight against the skin here because there's nothing really supporting it. So I need to put some kind of tabs on the front of frame 1 that pushes the skin of the nose cone out, as it's being installed. And I do have a lip along the front of here, but again, it's just a lip preventing it from coming off. There's not a lip preventing it from pushing in, and you can see if I push on this, you can see it flexes in. So I got to get some kind of a bracket on the backside of there that pushes tension out on the nose cone all the way around. I've probably got to do that 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 6 spots around there. So that's what I'm going to probably work on next as I go ahead and take this apart. I'll get that bracket now that I know that it fits. I'll get that permanently attached to the front of the battery mount, and then I'll start messing around with shims to see. But you can see I can fit a socket right in here. Just loosen this up. Can't tell if it's off yet. Hold on. Oh, yep, it's off. There's the nut. Yeah, so that's the nut I was using on the front of there. So now I can pull this off my finger. And there you can see the mount that's just attached with CriCos right now. So let me go ahead and rivet that on since I know this is going to fit. And again, right behind here is where I'm going to put shims if I need to, just to push that nut out just a little bit. And then, like I said, here I need to attach, pop rivet some trim or some trim pieces just to hold the trim of the or edge of the nose cone on. And I'll probably end up putting like one here, one here. The corners should be pretty rigid, so I'm not too worried about those. It's really the area in between here. But 2 here, 1 here, 2 across the bottom, and 1 about that same spot on the other side. So I think that'll take care of it. Let me start working on a few more of these things, and I'll show you what it looks like when I have the final fit ready and the nose cone's ready to be installed, permanently, or can be installed permanently. Here's the mount for the nose cone now riveted onto the front plate, which is obviously not attached yet to the battery. But that seems like it's going to work fine. So now I'm just moving on to these clips that I decided to make to try and keep the nose cone, when it's attached here from pushing down, just from air pressure, I just have to get something in there. And this is what I came up with. So these are just some little, 1-inch wide clips that I made that I'm going to mount like right under here, like so that when the nose cone slides over the top of that, it'll hold it and provide support on the bottom side. I've got a 40,000 shim. That's what I'm going to use to put underneath here when I attach that little clip, just so that I can have the correct spacing for the thickness of the lip of the nose cone that actually fits underneath here. And this seems like this is all it's needed. I mean, this is made out of 20 thousandths. It's plenty strong once you bend it. And I think it's going to provide plenty of support, especially if I put 6 around here. I'll probably do one here, one here, one on each side in the middle to support that that area where I showed where the cutout here is, and then 2 across the bottom. And I think that's going to be plenty. These should work great. So let me go ahead and make 5 more of these and see if I can get these clecoed in and ready to pop rivet. And we'll test the fit of the nose cone one last time before I rivet those in. So yeah, let me go ahead and make 6 more of these, or I'm sorry, 5 more of these. Okay, so I have a little support here on the top on either side. I put some down here in the bottom also with 2 pop rivets in each of them. They work really well. I was able to put the nose cone on and they support it, plenty. So it's going to work great. I did start working on the side ones here, and of course I was going to use these same small ones and put them, one down here where the skin of the nose cone, was obviously very flexible. But I got to thinking what I should do is, instead of using small ones like these, I should just make a longer one that covers the entire back. Let me see if I can get up here. That covers that entire gap back there and supports not only the bottom piece of fiberglass that's cut open here, as also support the top here. I put 2 marks where the fiberglass hits. But I think I'm going to just bend one that looks like these small ones here, but just do a really long one that goes across here. And what that's going to allow me to do is not only support the fiberglass on the top and the bottom that's cut out, but it'll also span the gap there. And if I need to put any kind of like filler piece in there, because I think the airfoil that goes around here doesn't completely cover part of this opening. There ends up being a little bit of gap. I've seen it on other airplanes. And so by putting a piece all the way across there, I can attach or pop rivet or, attach somehow some little piece of fiberglass that fills in the gap here. That stays on the airplane when you pull the nose cone out. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to use something like this, just slightly shorter. I'm going to bend 2 long ones, and I'll probably just put 3 pop rivets in it, 1 in the center and 2 on each end. So I'm going to go bend those and see if I can fit those in on the sides. And then we'll put the nose cone back on and put the front of the battery cover on, and we'll see how it all fits. I've got this one installed back here now. Now I did drill out the corner pop rivet here on frame 1, and I just ran that through this support that I added in there for the nose cone. I was going to put 3 rivets in here, 1 in the center, but I can't get the one in the center with the pop rivet gun unless I actually remove the entire engine mount, which I'm not going to do right now. But the holes there, I can always drill it out and put a pop rivet in there when I take this out. I might take this out and repaint it again because it's gotten scuffed up from all the things I've been doing with the battery and the nose cone installation. So for now, I'm just going to leave it. I'll put it in later. But again, I've got the angle right here, so it looks like it'll fit very well. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side here. And again, I'm going to drill this corner rivet out, and that's the rivet hole that I'm using for the top hole for my little support. Which, let's see if you can see it from this side. Sort of. Anyway, that's it. It's basically covering the back side of where the nose cone comes over the engine mount there. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get the other one done on the right side, then we'll fit the entire thing back on. I'll get this cover back on the front of the battery, and then the last thing I have to do is just shim underneath that nose cone attachment just to see if I can wrench it all the way down tight against the nut that's inside of here, because that's what I want to do when I have it installed. So let me get the other side done and we'll fit the nose cone on. All right, well, the nose cone is on. It's completely attached, and I went ahead and screwed the nut on there and tightened it up. I did have to add 1/30,000th shim underneath the lock washer nut that's on the back side of, the attachment point here in the front. The fit's pretty good. I wish it was a little bit better, maybe over here. I've actually got where I could actually sand down just a little bit of that lip right in here, because there's a little gap here, there's a little tiny gap here, and it's tight in the middle. So either sanding down the front lip of the fuselage here, but I'm assuming that's the straight part, and it's actually the lip that's on the front of the nose cone is just slightly off, but there's a nice tight fit on the side here. This side fits good, and the bottom looks great. So, I mean, it's 98% there. But yeah, very happy with this. So now I can take this off and go ahead and connect up the pitot tube, which is kind of why I wanted to get to this point with the battery installed. I do want to get the battery charger cable here that I'm going to attach and run inside the airplane attached to there. And I also want to get the main wire connections that I want to have to the battery that are going to the bus panel, behind the instrument panel where the main power comes in. I do want to have a master switch that basically disconnects everything in the airplane from the battery, from the main connection coming in, so that when I'm charging, I can have the charger connected to a separate circuit to charge the battery with the master switch off, so nothing in the airplane is going to be powered or be connected to the battery at all. And then, of course, I've got both my two separate ignition systems, which are also on their own switch. That'll come off that main power that's coming to the backside of the panel. So I've got a lot of work still left to do, but this was a big step getting this installed, because I wanted to get back to working on the cowlings here and the covers that are supposed to go over the pylons here, and then figure out how I'm going to attach those, down here. I've seen people that just take a piece of rubber basically and cut it to the shape of the airfoil and glue it on here or stick it on here, and then that aluminum piece can just butt up against it. That's the easiest way to do it. I've also seen some other people that have actually made fiberglass adjustments to the nose cone itself so that it has kind of a flare in it that kind of covers the end of the airfoil shape that goes over the pylons here, and that looks better, but it's a little bit more work. So we'll see. For now, I think I'm just going to get the covers on here and get a rubber seal around there, kind of like the plans show, because that's going to be quick and easy to do. Again, I'm trying to just get the airplane done at this point. There's some things I might go back as far as the nose cone goes and add some fillets here or some flares here or something, but I don't think it's required, at this point. So yeah, nose cone's done, nose cone's installed. Now we can start working on the rest of the things that connect the battery and the pitot tube.